Over the past few days, I've been walking the battlefields of the Western Front, specifically with the Battle of Arras, which took place in April and May of 1917. And the spot where I am standing right now, if you look at it today, you drive through and it just looks like normal flat farmlands. But in the opening phases of the Battle of Arras, this would have been the site of some vicious fighting. I'm just east of a place called Roquelincourt on the north side of the Scarpe River. And in the opening phases of the Battle of Arras, the 51st, 34th, and 9th Divisions were tasked with clearing this area out. And attached to the 34th Division was the 102nd Brigade, also known as the Tyneside Scots. So as I mentioned, I am just to the east of a place called Roquelincourt, and the Tyneside Scottish, who were part of the 34th Division, were tasked with moving through this area right here. Now, one thing that was kind of evolving during the era around 1917 is that the British or the Allies started introducing what were called phase lines. So in this area there was a black line, and then there was a blue line, and then there was a green line. Right through here, this was the approximate site of the blue line. There was a big German reserve trench system that moved right through here in this area. And the Tyneside Scottish were to take this particular area in their efforts to help clear out the area north of the Scarpe. And many of the men who fought on that day are still here today. So right now I am facing to the west. So off in this direction approximately is Roquelincourt, and this is the Balle Road Cemetery. So you would have had the men from the Tyneside Scots advancing from right here, coming in this direction. They were made up of 4 different regiments of the Northumberland Fusiliers. They'd fought in the Battle of the Somme and got chewed up pretty bad there. And again, the task of these divisions, the 51st, the 34th, and the 9th, was to clear out the area north of the Scarpe River. So anyway, we're going to take a quick look in the Balle Road Cemetery to see some of the graves of the men who never left this place as they attacked the German lines right here in these fields. So here in this cemetery, as with some of the other cemeteries that we've been in, well, you can go along and look at these headstones and learn a little bit more about the regiments and the battles that took place in these particular areas. So here we go. If we look, this is a J. Keening, and you can see he was with the Tyneside Scottish, and NF stands for Northumberland Fusiliers. He was 29 years old when he died. Died on the first day of the battle, 9th of April. Here's one from the Royal Scots, who also died on the 9th of April. Here's another, a private, who died on the 9th of April, H.S. Brown. Okay, and you can just go on and on and on and see these guys. Here's some South Africans who also died on the first day of the battle. They fought in this area. And if we go along, here's one with Cameronians, Scottish Rifles. Okay, so a lot of Scottish in this particular area, and also South Africans. But yeah, a lot of men who breathed their last breath on April 9th right here along this line. As I've been walking the ground here in this cemetery, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of unknown soldiers in this cemetery. So here you can see, here's one from the Bedfordshire Regiment. Let's see, moving along, some that are just unknown, don't even know what regiment they were in. And then we get to one here who is an unknown soldier from the Northumberland Fusiliers. So that would have been the regiment that I was just referring to. Now, walking in this cemetery, I'm also seeing quite a few graves from 1918. So in the German Spring Offensive, they would have pushed right back through here. So a lot of the men who died in that offensive are also buried in this cemetery. But it wasn't just the British forces who were dying here along this line. As I mentioned, this was part of the German defensive system right through here. There were also a lot of Germans who were killed in this assault. And close by, almost within sight of this cemetery, is a German cemetery. I've moved just maybe 150 yards down the road, and now I am in the St. Laurent Blangy German War Cemetery. As a matter of fact, the British cemetery that we were just at, or the Commonwealth Cemetery, you can see it's that stone wall just right back there. Now, the German cemetery here was a collection cemetery. So there are graves of soldiers from all over the Arras battlefront. So as you're walking around here, you'll see a lot of dates ranging all the way from 1914 all the way through to 1918. So this cemetery has the remains of over 30,000 German soldiers from the Great War. And here on the right, well, you can see there's a George Siedelmeyer, who died, looks to be May 12th of 1915. But here on the left, well, here is Willy Mintha, who is a Landsturman. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. That roughly translates to like a militiaman. And he died on April 14th of 1917. So that's most likely Battle of Arras. We move down here. Here's another one on the right that's a 1915 death. And then we see April 18th of 1917 of Karl Hoffmann. And then we move on down. Again, another 1915 name on the right. And then the grave of Wilhelm Spickermann, who died on the 11th. So he died on the second day of the battle. So you can go along and look at all of these graves and see the different names and the dates that they died. So here's another one that was later in the month of April. Here's another one who died on the second day of the battle. Now, just because there are multiple names on these crosses, they're on the back side as well, doesn't mean that this is just like one large mass grave. These men were laid out in a trench, but for cost-saving purposes, keep in mind Germany was wrecked after the First World War. For cost-saving purposes, They just put multiple names on one cross. Among all of the crosses in this cemetery, every once in a while you'll walk past one that looks like this, indicating that the soldier was Jewish. So this is the grave of Eric Abraham. I don't know what VZW stands for, but we can see that he died on April 2nd of 1917, so that was a week before the large battle kicked off. So maybe it was from artillery fire, maybe it was from a trench raid, we just don't know. But I always find the Jewish graves in these World War I cemeteries to be interesting, knowing what was going to be befalling the Jewish people in the Third Reich era. So these people were fighting for their country in World War I, and then would find the leadership in that country turning against them in World War II. Making our way to the back of the cemetery, you can see where these crosses extend up on top of this hill. And in the middle of the cemetery, well, there's this large blank space that is surrounded by stone. And here in this space lie 22,000 unknown German soldiers. That is just wild to think about. And over here, they have the names of all of the German soldiers in this area who have no known grave. And there's one in particular that I want to point out. Here among all of the names of the men who are at rest in this comrade's grave, or this mass grave, I wanted to focus in on this one in particular, that of Matthias Huber. Here it says he was a Landwehrman, okay, so he was a militiaman, died on the 5th of April, 1917, so that was about a month before the Battle of Arras kicked off. And the reason that I wanted to focus in on this particular individual is that I actually have the funeral card of Matthias Huber. So here we can not only put a face with a name, but we can learn a little bit more about his service. Okay, so it says that he was in, he's from Bavaria. He was in Infantry Regiment Number 2 in the 4th Company. And then, of course, as we've already mentioned, he died on the 5th of March of 1917 after 32 months of service. And he was 37 years old. Anytime I go to the battlefields of World War I or World War II, I always like going to the German cemeteries, in addition to the American cemeteries and the Commonwealth cemeteries. So anyway, we're going to jump in our vehicle because there is another German cemetery that's not too far away that I think is even larger than this one that we are going to take a look at. I've now moved over to Newville St. Vost German War Cemetery. This is another collection cemetery that was formed after the war. I think there were like 110 different sites that ended up converging or consolidating right here in this cemetery. The last cemetery was big. This one is just mind-boggling. Here towards the front of the cemetery is a stone memorial that was not originally here. And this is kind of rare. You don't see a lot of German memorials to the dead. This one was created by the Hanoverian Regiment number 164, and they made this monument in honor of the men who had died in their regiment. And then when the cemetery was established, well, it was placed here. Yeah, interesting. When you're standing here at the Newville St. Vost German War Cemetery, it is just a sea of black crosses in front of you, all of them with the names, ranks, and dates of death of these different soldiers. So many, we're kind of in the Vimy Ridge area, so many of the soldiers who are buried here would have been killed in like the battle for Vimy Ridge and Battle of Arras and Lorette. Here you see a couple of guys who were killed in May of 1917, so this would have been right before the Battle of Arras kicked off. And there are almost 45,000 German soldiers who were buried here in this cemetery. Just for perspective, that's almost 5 times the number of soldiers who were buried in the Normandy American Cemetery, which is a collection cemetery as well. Here is something else that's kind of interesting. We're right here in the front line area in this cemetery, and we've got ourselves a concrete bunker right in the middle of the cemetery. Graves that I've come across as I've been walking through here. So here's one to a Karl Solzchik and Franz Wieth. Both died in May of 1917. And then here are a few more, May 8th and May 4th of 1917. So these are all graves of men who died here in this area during the Battle of Arras. I've come now to the grave of Joseph Altman. He was a Gefreiter, or private, and as you can see, he was killed September 19th of 1917. And just as with the soldier at the other cemetery, I have the funeral card for Joseph Altman, so we can get a little bit more information about him. There you can see his picture. It says that he was in combat for 37 months when he was killed, and was 40 years old. It says that he was killed in an explosion at a field hospital. But yeah, there's a little bit that again attaches a face with a name here at this cemetery. When you come to these cemeteries and walk among these crosses and read the names and the dates, you can't help but wonder about the men who were buried there. You know, who was it that they left behind? What were their motivations for going to war? For some, maybe they were enthusiastically supporting the cause. Maybe some of them were drafted. Some maybe just felt like they were doing their duty. But all of them came here to France, and they never left. But anyway, that was just a few of the German war cemeteries right here along the Arras battlefront.